I'm a marriage and family therapist who's been helping people heal from childhood trauma for the last 2 decades. And if you think that PTSD is responsible for all of your relationship troubles, then I have a bombshell for you today. Start with healing one trigger at a time. You can do this. I have worked with couples who've come to me for relationship help, and I've also worked with trauma survivors, and I have found a similarity between all couples and trauma survivors. People in relationships who do not identify themselves as having endured childhood trauma experience something very similar to what childhood trauma survivors identify as emotional flashbacks. As a result, every single person who's in relationship develops habits of interaction based on those same emotional flashbacks that lead to conflict with their partner when the partner's automatic relationship habits clash with their own. What? Non-traumatized people have emotional flashbacks too? They do. Let me break it down for you. Imagine, if you will, a pretend couple that I made up for this video, Bonnie and Clyde. Actually, this is Clyde. She's my 5-year-old bearded dragon, 5.5, huh? I've raised her since she was 3 months old, and she is the inspiration for the couple, the fictitious couple that I'm telling you about today, Bonnie and Clyde. Yes, Clyde is a girl. When bearded dragons are 3 months old, it's too hard to tell their gender. So it wasn't until I took her to the vet when she was about a year that they said, "Are you sure Clyde is a boy?" I'm like, "No." Good, because she's not. Clyde's a girl. But by then she already had her name. Huh, didn't you? You're a movie star. You're in the movies, Clydey girl. So now that you've met Clyde, let's talk more about the imaginary couple. So if we take something fairly innocent, Bonnie's family had a rule while she was growing up: don't ever go to sleep angry. So in her family, when there was a conflict, they talked through and figured things out before they went to bed. But in Clyde's family, they had a philosophy that said, let's let this problem rest until morning, and then we'll have a different perspective on it. Now, as you can imagine, when Bonnie and Clyde meet and they are in relationship, stable, loving, healthy relationship, there's a big conflict around this problem of how do you deal with these issues, whether it's at nighttime or in the morning. Because Bonnie wants to stay up late to resolve it before going to bed, and she doesn't want to let it go. And Clyde keeps getting frustrated with Bonnie because she won't stop to let him rest. It's likely that both partners think that the other does not care about them until they actually talk about their family of origin patterns. The thing is, when these things are happening, even for couples who haven't experienced extensive trauma, their assumptions and automatic responses are not different from emotional flashbacks, except in one aspect. With emotional flashbacks associated with PTSD, there's more fear. But you could see that in these interactions with Bonnie and Clyde, if they keep going like this, there's going to be fears that develop. That my partner doesn't love me, that my partner doesn't care that I'm in pain, that my partner doesn't want to hear my side of the story. It can go on and on based on childhood and family of origin experiences. So let's talk about emotional flashbacks. Emotional flashbacks are those situations where the brain identifies something that you've been through as similar enough to what's happening right now that the brain chooses an automatic response and a habitual behavior focused on the primary goal of just keeping you safe. So with PTSD or complex PTSD or developmental trauma, as we call it, the emotional flashback often comes with fear or shutdown or lashing out. When there isn't complex trauma, the same thing happens, but without the intense fear or shutdown or lashing out. I hope you're seeing something and putting something together here. Because here's the good news for survivors of childhood trauma. Once you heal your complex PTSD, you can stop looking at relationship conflicts as caused by your complex trauma. Or you can stop looking at the fact that you have conflict in your relationship as your fault or as unsolvable. Super important things to realize. So let me give you an example that's from my own personal life. The truth is, and I've shared a little bit about my trauma before, but the reality is that I spent 30 years after I left my childhood home in relationships that mirrored the dynamics from my abusive childhood. So because of that, I developed a habit of looking like I'm listening to my partner, but then doing my own thing, and most of the time just disregarding what they were telling me. That translated into me having habits that prevent me from being vulnerable or from fully trusting. It came from a place where I realized over 30 years, and in fact longer than that, that advice, support, encouragement, direction coming from these partners and from my home that I grew up in were based in the other person's needs and really were meant as manipulations, not as true support. So now I find myself in healthy, safe relationship and discover that my habit of not listening and flinting around and doing my own thing is actually causing frustration. That is something that I can pay attention to and change. What's really important to recognize here is that it's fully my choice. I decide that. But here's the thing, that habit is not a complex PTSD symptom. There is not fear associated with why I do that. It's just a very long, ingrained pattern that I developed to keep myself safe. Yes, it's the outcome of my trauma history, but it isn't complex PTSD, and it's important to make that distinction. So what does this mean for you? First of all, I want you to realize you can heal from childhood trauma. You will see people out there that say it can't be healed, the scars stay there forever, you have to live with and integrate all of your symptoms. It's not true. You can heal it. Secondly, once you've come to a certain point in your healing, your relationship conflicts will be the normal stuff that all couples have to learn to deal with in relationship. There's something I say when I'm working with couples. I learned this while I was studying imago therapy, and it is that all relationships come to the place where the thing that's hardest for us to give is the very thing that our relationship partner needs from us. And the very hardest thing for them to give are the things that we need the most. That's normal relationship development. Everyone has to deal with it. So I want you to stop identifying that as your fault because you experienced childhood trauma and now you struggle to heal your complex PTSD. I hope I've given you something to think about. As always, drop your questions into the comment section below and I'll answer those questions in upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.